All right, guys, today is Sunday, August 20th, 2023. It's probably, I don't know, about 10:30 a.m. Not that it really matters. It's already really hot. So this is the weekend, so on the weekends I don't work on Steve's car. That's a weekday work job right there. So on the weekends I like to focus my attention on my stuff. So today's focus is going to be the wife's 55 four-door. So I ended up getting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I got an ICT billet alternator bracket, or AC compressor bracket. I ended up buying the other one from Summit that puts the alternator over here. Now the cool thing that I noticed about these ICT brackets is, you know, they're aluminum and they look nice. It's not some thin piece of steel bracket, you know, like something factory would have had. This is more I don't know, I just like it better. Plain and simple, I just like it better. The way these brackets are designed, they kind of look symmetrical to each other. They're not, but they give a look of a front runner system. So, and if, I'm obviously not going to buy a front runner system for this car, so that's way too much money. I can get another Project 55 four-door for the price of a front runner, and that's the way I live my life. If it's an expensive part, I will still go as cheap as I can and get another car if I can. You know, it's always about project cars for me. So today's plan, I'm going to put the cylinder heads on it. I'm just going to set them on it on the dowels, and I'm going to put the water pump on with just a couple of bolts to hold it in place, and then I'm going to get those brackets out and kind of mock everything up and see how it's going to set. All right, guys, so I started mocking stuff up, as you can see, and I really like the look of these brackets. It gives a unique look to it, but it to me, when you get down here, it's not symmetrical by any means, but you're not going to see the front of this because the radiator will be in the way and the baffles. What you will see when you walk up here is this, and right here, this looks symmetrical. So I love it. I absolutely love it. That was what I was after. I wanted it to look like a front runner system, but it had to be cheap, man. I'm not going to spend, you know, $1,000 or more on a front runner system to put all the accessories all grouped up and look symmetrical. So to me, this was kind of the way to go. This has a lot of cool, unique features about it, but it does have some bad things that I am not happy with. So in the ad that I got this bracket for the air conditioning sand and compressor for a small block with a long water pump, which this, you have to have the 3 accessory bolt holes in the cylinder head on this side. A lot of GM stuff doesn't have that. They have 1 accessory hole for the alternator right here for long water pump stuff. These heads are 305 cylinder heads off a 1982 Chevy pickup. So they have 3 accessory holes on this side, but they only have 1 on this side, and that's the way GM did it. So when you take these heads off, they'll have 3 accessory holes on one end and 1 on the other. So it doesn't matter if you flip the heads around or not, it will be the same. So there's 1 accessory hole here, 3 accessory holes here. This bracket bolted on just fine. So there is no problem with their bracket for this side. I mean, there is, I'll get to that in a second. But this one bolted on and it will work just fine. This one for the sand and compressor for a long water pump small block Chevy has a problem because I only have the 1 accessory hole. This requires the other 2 holes in the head. You have to have 3 hole cylinder accessory holes in your cylinder heads. So if you had aftermarket heads or later model heads, like I've got a Vortec 305 in there and it has 3 accessory holes on each front. So there's 3 accessory holes here and 3 here. So these brackets would work on that Vortec 305 that's in my garage. These heads are the ones I'm going to run because I'm wanting to run perimeter bolt heads. I don't want to have to buy adapter plates to run, you know, center bolt heads to go to perimeter bolt. Those adapters are like $100. I'm just not doing it. So in other words, I'm saying I could put them Vortec heads on this 305. So I just don't want to mess with it. I wanted to keep these heads. I've already done a little port work to these heads and that kind of stuff. So what I attempted to do was drill and tap the cylinder head for this bracket. So these heads have a raised boss right here and a longer one down here. So I went ahead and marked it, and I drilled and tapped this one first. Now it went through the cylinder head, I didn't go very far, and it went into the coolant passages. So when the end takes off, you can stick your finger down in there and you can feel the bolt. So I'm going to have to put thread sealant on that. So I'm really in trouble on this lower bolt right here, because there is no threaded boss where that goes in at. It's just on the base of the head, like right in here. See how that boss comes down right here? It's hard to show it on this one, but I've got room over here. But over there, this raised boss is up here, but that bolt is coming in line about right here, so it's not going to work. I'm not going to drill that blow on the head. That's committing suicide for that cylinder head. So it's not a big deal to drill into the coolant passage, because on a small block Chevy with a long water pump, that bolt hole right there goes straight through to a coolant passage. So it's the same thing. You just have to put thread sealant on. It'll be just fine. But at this point, I only have 2 bolt holes in that cylinder head. So this one I don't have bolted in there. So I'm trying to kind of figure out, it may be okay with just the 2, but I would feel better if it had the 3. So I'm trying to come up with a plan to possibly, there's a sleeve in here. Like if I take this bolt out, there's a sleeve right here. So I'm trying to think of maybe running a bracket, building a bracket that maybe I can shorten the sleeve and put a bracket up in there and then put the sleeve in there and have a bracket go into something else on the engine to give it the lower support. And it may not need it, I don't know. And I may be able to just take an L bracket of some kind, just make one, and go off the exhaust manifold bolt and an L bracket it to this. So, and like I say, it might be fine just having these 2, but I have to have this bolt go into something. So what I can do on this part is I can put a helicoil in this aluminum bracket in the rear, and that way that 3/8 bolt will actually go in there, so it will actually look like it's supposed to without not having a bolt in there, you know what I mean? So, you know, since this bolt is not bolted to the head and there's no hole there, I need a bolt in there so this doesn't look like there's a bolt missing. So that was kind of the idea I had. I don't have any nut zerts or riv nuts or anything to put in that bracket to work. I don't have any of that. I have to go buy it. So I'm pretty sure I have a helicoil in there, 3/8 stuff. So that was what I was thinking, is I would just drill and helicoil this bracket, the existing hole, because I'm pretty sure that tap size is going to be bigger than that hole that's in this bracket. So I can put a little helicoil in there, and then I'll probably have to shorten the bolt just a little bit, and then I can run the bolt down. And that way it'll look like it's bolted on. But I mean, it's stable. I don't know that it needs that bolt, but it makes me feel better if I have something down there. So I may build a bracket to go to that just for the added safety. But I am not drilling another hole in that head because there's nothing there. So anyway, that's my only concern with this side. Now, the other problem that this has is their turnbuckles. This is absolutely awesome. These are all stainless turnbuckles. You usually don't find stainless turnbuckles. You got to keep in mind, I paid $78 per bracket, and for the stainless hardware and a stainless turnbuckle alone, I think that's a smoking deal. But the size of the hole that's in these turnbuckle ends is 7/16. So these are 3/8 bolts. So you get a lot of slack. There's a lot of slack in there. So I'm going to build some sleeves or bushings to take the slack out. I'm going to have to custom, find a one that'll fit, and I'm going to cut at the thickness of the turnbuckle and put it in there as a sleeve to take up the slack, because I don't want all this crap loose. So the really bad part is right here. This bracket is made for a 10SI or 12SI GM alternator. This is a 12SI alternator. GM alternators have the 10 and the 12 has a 5/16 hole here. So it takes a 5/16 bolt. So when you have a 7/16 size hole in your turnbuckle and a 5/16 bolt, look at all that slack in there. Now, no doubt when I tighten that down with the belt, it's probably going to be fine. But I don't want that in there. I don't want all that slack in there. To me, that's cheesy. So for me, I'm just going to build some sleeves or bushings and put in there to take out the slack. So I'm going to have to do a little fab work, but I got to tell you, I don't mind for the price I paid. To get this kind of look, when you're standing up here looking down, this looks like a custom You know what? It looks like I spent a lot of money on that. And to me, $78 per side is a smoking deal. Because for $82, I got this from eBay last year. This is a knockoff of Allen Grove. This is an exact replica of an Allen Grove. But I paid $82 for this bracket, and it's made out of steel. It's even came in rusty parts and stuff. And it came with just regular old zinc plated grade 5 hardware. So all of this would have had to been sanded and painted, and I was going to change the bolts out to stainless steel. I got these billet brackets for 78 bucks with stainless steel turnbuckles. Now, I've never really been a fan of turnbuckles, but in this case, on a car that I am going to be driving the crap out of and she's going to be driving the crap out of, this is perfect. You know, your belt's a little loose, you just tighten that down. So I'm going to leave the turnbuckles because this, on a true driver, this is easy maintenance right here. If I got to change a belt, that's easy maintenance. So I'm going to leave that. Now, the other thing on this side over here, the hole that they drilled in the rear bracket back here is really large for a 3/8 bolt. So there's a lot of slack in that one. Now, no doubt if I tighten it up, it's probably going to be okay, but it, you know, with the air conditioning compressor running, they put a lot of strain on the front of the engine. So I want to make sure all this stuff is sleeved or bushed and not have any slack in it. So I've got to build a bushing for this turnbuckle and that turnbuckle over there. So again, it sucks that I have to, you know, modify something that, you know, shouldn't have to do that. But for the price, I don't mind, because I have sleeves here and tubing, and you know, I can do this and probably not spend any more money, so I'm good with that. Now, for whatever reason, they send you stainless steel bolts, but the serrated flange nuts they send you are zinc grade 5. So luckily, I had enough in my spares, stainless stuff. I had serrated stainless flange nuts, so I swapped them all out except one. I am missing one. So I'll just go to the hardware store and buy one to put on there, and it'll have all stainless hardware. And I'm talking about these guys right here, these little stainless steel serrated flange nuts. They came with grade 5 zinc plated ones. So now it's all stainless. But I would just about almost rather have a nylon lock nut and a washer, because that serrated flange nut, it has those teeth on the back. It's going to dig the crap out of that aluminum. So I may change those out to stainless steel Nylock lock nuts. And again, this is just me. You know, I might be being a little bit critical, but I don't want anything with slack in it. And you know, I'm thinking about painting these brackets black. And if I go to put a serrated flange nut on there, it's going, when I tighten that up, it's going to tear every bit of the paint off of it. So, you know, I'm kind of looking at it on my end on what to do. I'm trying to go for an original look, but I want it to look a little modernized, upgraded, and custom, you know. But I think I pulled that off. But at least now my air conditioning stuff is on this side of the car with all the other air conditioner stuff. Like the dryer will be over here, all the AC hoses, everything goes into that side. Before, the AC bracket with that fake Allen Grove bracket was going to be over here, and those hoses would have had to run all the way over, and it just looked goofy. And I got a hose set, and I doubt they're long enough to make the hoses to make them reach. So this was kind of the best way to go for me. And now I'm going to give you what I really love about it. So you won't see the front of it with the radiator in the car, but when you walk up to the front of this car and you look down, to me this looks very expensive. Beefy, really nicely done brackets. The way they're cut out and made, I really dig it. They're low. They're not super low like down here, which I like, because I have a mid-mount alternator on my hardtop, and it is very difficult to work on that alternator to get it off there. I have to lean way over. This one is low enough to where when you're walking up the car, this stuff's not up here in your face, so I really like that. It's like the perfect height off of the car. So I was worried when I first started putting it on there, because it looked like everything was way far out and was going to hit the inner fenders, but after putting the inner fender on the car, there's a ton of room here, so I'm not going to have to worry about that. But one of the other cool features is, because when I build a car, I always look at how easy it's going to be to repair something if something fails, like a replacement. And in this case, these go solely to the head. So if your water pump fails, you don't have to take off anything. You just take off the water pump. That water pump will come off there and not be in the way of anything. So of course I'll have to loosen the turnbuckles, loosen the belt, you know what I mean? But like if this was a factory like my C10, I would have to change the water pump. I'd have to take a bunch of brackets off to get to that. Alternator bracket, power steering bracket. I won't have to do none of that with this car. So that is simplified. So I really like that. So overall, for this bracket set, I would give it a, if I had Vortec heads, it'd be awesome. But, you know, or cylinder heads that had the holes in them. Now, if you have aftermarket cylinder heads, like I have some Edelbrock aluminum aftermarket heads, they have, I think, 5 accessory holes in each end. So that'd be perfect. But with the cylinder heads I have, it doesn't fit my application completely. So I did drill and tap. It just sucks it went through the coolant passage. I really didn't want it to do that, and I didn't have to drill it too far to go through there, so really I was kind of stuck. So, but again, it's the same as this lower bolt hole. This goes straight to the coolant passage in the block. So all I gotta do is put some thread sealant on, it'll be just fine. And I don't like how the holes are bigger than that. But overall, I'd give it about an 8 out of 10. These are not polished. I don't think it would take much to sand them and polish them. They're not rough cast or anything, but I'd like to paint these black just to kind of help with the look. But this compressor is not polished, but it looks like it would polish up just by rubbing on it. So everything is smoothed out, it just needs to be polished. So I'm going to highly polish this, and I'm going to go ahead, I'd already rebuilt this alternator with a new kit in it, but I'm going to go ahead and take the alternator completely apart, and I'm going to decast it by sanding the whole case down, and I'm going to polish it on the buffing wheel. So it'll have a polished alternator and a polished compressor. So I don't think I want to leave the brackets and polish those. To me, I think that would be a little much. I really like my engines to not have a whole lot of shiny stuff on them, but in this case, I think my wife will like the little bit of bling it'll have, you know what I mean? This stuff here is going to get painted black because I'm not a big chrome guy. But I did put on my oil filter. This did end up being an actual 265 oil filter canister. One of my subscribers, William, went to the Tri-5 Nationals, and he emailed me several pictures and everything, and it's identical. So that is what this bracket is. Now, I did find out they had these in 2 different colors. They had orange and blue, which was a dealer installed, and then there was another one that was all black with white lettering. So I think what I'm going to do is the blue and orange, because that's the one I see the most in some of the pictures, and put the reproduction decals on it. But this is going to be a coolant overflow bottle, so it's going to end up being really neat. Whatever, the other thing I don't like about this, and I'm going to modify it, I don't like how this sandwiches in between that and the intake, the water neck and the intake, because if I have to put a thermostat in the car, this will have to come off, and it's going to take 2 gaskets, and it just seems like it would be a sealing nightmare. So what I'm thinking about doing is cutting it out exactly where the thermostat housing is, and possibly build a bracket off this threaded boss that's already in the intake, and just weld a little bracket to this to where it'll bolt on here, and then maybe have another bracket back here that goes over there to bolt on. So I just don't like the idea of having to put 2 gaskets. I'm going to have a gasket on the bottom of that and a gasket. Well, it's 6:30 p.m. I am overheated again, and I got a giant mess out here to clean up before I can even go in. I ended up pulling my truck over here to block the sun off of me because the sun was directly on me. It was cooking me. Anyway, I've been working on this oil filter canister that I want to turn into a coolant overflow tank. So there's one thing that the way it's made, I don't like the way it mounts. So this is pretty iconic for a 55-265, is the way this mounts to your thermostat housing goes on there. So that actually sandwiches in between there. So the silly part about it is, if you got to change your thermostat, or you have a leaky thermostat housing, you got to take all that crap apart, and it's going to take 2 gaskets to fix it. So I just don't trust it for longevity. It's just not my idea of a good design, having something sandwiched like that. And it would probably be fine. I just don't want it that way. So I've redesigned some bracketry here, and I'm just kind of mocking it up by spot welding a couple of spots on it. But Anyway, what I'm going to end up doing, well, what I've already done, is I made a little bracket right here because there was an unused threaded boss in this intake for the water alternator bracket. So I ended up putting 2 little spot welds on there, tack welds. So I'll take it all off, with the bolt out of it, and I'll go in there and make a nice little stitch across there. So that will be the new mountings for this part of the bracket. And then on the back, I built a strap bracket and angle bent it. I step bitted a hole in this bracket and welded in a flange nut, a 5/16 by 18 flange nut back there, and then ground it so it's all flush in there. So now it bolts on, and then it'll bolt on with another nut on the stud on the carburetor. I've got some really long studs in the garage in a box, but I didn't feel like going in there and digging them out, so I'll have longer studs for this. But anyway, the carburetor will be bolted down with its own set of nuts, and then I'll put this will go on, and then another nut will have to go onto that. So I basically didn't want to, if I ever had to remove this, I didn't want it to, break the seal on my carburetor gasket just by taking this off, because if I'd have had that underneath the carb nut, right on top of the carb flange. So doing it this way, the carb will stay bolted down with its own nut, and then this has its own nut on top of it. But it definitely needs a longer stud so it doesn't look so silly. But anyway, so I have a front mounting area, and then I have a rear mounting area for this. So what I'm going to do is I traced the thermostat housing out, and I am going to cut it all out right there. I'm going to get in there and cut it out with a plasma cutter pretty close to my line, and then I'll finish it off with a burr bit. And I'll have to go just a little bit out further than my line, but that way that will actually fit like over the front of that and down on it. So when I go to change, if the thermostat sticks or thermostat housing starts leaking, I take these 2 bolts out. This can stay there because it is not in the way of this. This will go through that. So I'm going to cut all of this out right here. But when this is on there, I'm going to have it to where it's kind of just about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So it'll look like it's actually on there like it's supposed to be, because to me this bracket's really not that noticeable. But anyway, this one is kind of noticeable, but I've got the big 4-barrel air cleaner to put on here, so that's going to take care of a lot of it. But this is going to end up working out really, really nice. So just kind of designing it my own way and what I'm comfortable with, because I'm the one doing the work and I'm the one footing the bill, you know what I mean? So as far as turning this into a coolant overflow, this thing is pretty much already there, except I'm going to modify it a little bit further. So you need your coolant. It needs to be at the bottom of whatever tank you're using. It has to pull from the bottom of this. So this actually goes through this tube. So I believe there's a hole in this somewhere for the oil to come out of, but it needs to be all the way down to the bottom. So I'm going to cut this whole stud or stem off right at the base down there on the inside. So when the antifreeze comes in from the radiator to here, it'll pull up in there. And then in the event that it needs to vent, and also if it overpressurizes and overheats and starts pushing back from the the radiator cap, lets off the pressure, and it starts letting antifreeze into this and filling it up, this is going to be the vent right here, and also the overflow puke tube. So I will bend a hard line coming out of here and have it come down in through here and out and just onto the ground. It'll come out down here right about where the front of the engine is. So I'll see if I can't get it to go out where it clearly goes on the ground and not make a mess inside the engine compartment. So it'll actually have a hard line that bolts to that, and so will the bottom here. It'll have a 90-degree fitting, so the fitting will go right in there, and then I'll just pull it out and down and across and over to the radiator. But I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to paint this. These came in 2 colors. They came in black, and I honestly like the corporate GM blue and orange two-tone filters with the blue lettering, so that's what I'm going to go with. I think it'll look cooler, but I'm going to do custom mixes. This engine and intake and everything is going to be painted, and the orange on the filter will be the Chevrolet orange that I had mixed at the paint shop, but it has gold pearl in it, so it'll have it's base coat clear coat, so it'll have a pearl Chevy orange engine. And then I'm going to take the corporate blue and mix up some blue pearl in the clear and put over the corporate blue, so it'll be blue pearl and orange pearl, but it'll appear kind of stock. You know, I know this front runner looking bracket stuff ain't stock, but it doesn't nowhere near look like stock, but I like that. It kind of upgrades the car, you know, looking, but I still want a lot of this top area of the engine to be stock appearing, other than the Demon. But anyway, guys, I am done. I'm picking up stuff and breaking this all down and putting it back in the house. I am done. I'm sweating like crazy. Thanks for watching.